We'll be all right. We'll be all right. Yeah, we'll be all right. I think he went on social media and said something about it, but you can't fault this out on, this whole MVP thing.
The narrative around Bronny James and LeBron James has always been built on legacy, family, and this storybook idea of father and son sharing the spotlight. But now cracks are starting to show. And when Bronny himself starts hinting at why things might not be working the way people expected, that's when this goes from a feel-good story to something way more complicated. Here's the part nobody is talking about. Playing with your father, especially when that father is LeBron James, isn't just basketball. It's pressure on a completely different level. Every move gets analyzed. Every mistake gets amplified. And instead of being seen as your own player, you're constantly measured against someone who's been dominating the league for 2 decades. That's not a normal situation for any young player trying to find his identity. Does Bronny James Jr. have to be successful in order for this to still be a great story? I want to see him be successful just because I know how people might use that against LeBron in the future, but I don't think you can even use it against him. The fact that LeBron has put himself in a position where he has so much power that he can get Bronny James in the NBA. So, let's set the stage. Bronny entered the NBA with more attention than most rookies could ever imagine, not just because of his talent, but because of the name on the back of his jersey. And while there were moments where he showed flashes, defensive effort, basketball IQ, glimpses of confidence, the reality is he's still developing. He's not a finished product. And being in an environment where expectations are sky high doesn't always help that process. This is where it gets dangerous because development requires patience, space, and the freedom to make mistakes. But when you're sharing the court with LeBron, that margin for error disappears. The game moves faster, the expectations are higher, and every possession feels like it matters more. That can make a young player hesitate. And hesitation, especially at the NBA level, is something defenses exploit immediately. What's your take on Bronny? Do you think that he belongs on the Lakers? Or do you think that he just belongs to the G League? No. I said it from the beginning. You got to put everything in totality, right? You can't just say, okay, Bronny, he averaged 4. What are his attributes? 6 feet 2 inches, 42-inch vertical, strong, fast, can dribble, can shoot the ball, right? So, you're 19 at these picks. Who is the best option? A 24-year-old, right? And I'm comparing you to a 19-year-old, right? So, if I rewind you at 19, where were you? You weren't trying to get into the NBA. You evaluate who has the upside here. Now, let's talk about what Bronny has reportedly been feeling. It's not about conflict or drama. It's about fit, about roles, about understanding where he stands in a system that's still centered around one of the greatest players of all time. Because no matter what, when LeBron is on the floor, everything runs through him. That's how it's always been. That's how he's built his career. But for Bronny, that creates a challenge. Here's the part nobody is talking about. It's hard to grow when you're always playing in someone else's shadow, even if that someone is your father, even if there's love and support. Basketball doesn't slow down for emotions. It's about rhythm, confidence, and repetition. And if Bronny isn't getting consistent opportunities to handle the ball, make decisions, and learn through mistakes, his growth naturally slows down. This is where young players usually make a mistake. They try to force their moment. Instead of letting the game come to them, they start pressing, taking shots they wouldn't normally take, trying to prove something on every possession. And when that happens, it often backfires. Instead of building confidence, it creates more doubt. His game is passive all the way around. Everything is secondary to him, and it's just this awkward thing. When he's supposed to shoot it, he passes. When he's supposed to pass it, he shoots. And if you look at the bigger picture, this isn't the first time we've seen something like this in the NBA. Young players paired with dominant superstars often struggle to find their footing. The system is designed to maximize the star, not necessarily develop the rookie. And while that can lead to wins, it doesn't always lead to growth for everyone involved. Now, to be clear, this isn't about Bronny blaming LeBron. That's not what this is. It's about recognizing a reality that most people don't want to admit. Playing with LeBron is a privilege, But it's also a challenge because you're not just playing basketball. You're playing within a legacy with expectations that go beyond the game itself. This is where it gets dangerous because once that realization sets in, decisions have to be made. Does Bronny continue trying to develop in this environment, hoping to carve out a role over time? Or does he start thinking about what's best for his long-term growth, even if that means stepping away from the situation? Here's the part nobody is talking about. Independence is crucial for young players. They need to fail on their own, succeed on their own, and build confidence without constantly being compared. And for Bronny, that might mean finding a situation where he can be just a player, not LeBron's son. The problem with Bronny's game is he's not aggressive. And when you're not looking to score, it becomes a problem. A problem. When you're looking to make passes, you miss everything. And let's connect this to the basketball side of things. Bronny's game isn't built around dominance. Right now, he's more of a complement player, someone who can defend, make smart plays, and contribute within a system. But to take that next step, he needs representatives, he needs touches. He needs the chance to make decisions with the ball in his hands. And in a system centered around LeBron, those opportunities are naturally limited. This is where young players usually make a mistake. They underestimate how important those representatives are. It's not just about playing time. It's about meaningful involvement, being part of the offense, not just standing in the corner. And if Bronny isn't getting that consistently, it slows everything down. Now, let's talk about LeBron's side of this, because that matters, too. LeBron has always been about winning, about maximizing every season, every opportunity. And if Bronny isn't getting that consistently, it slows everything down. Now, let's talk about LeBron's side of this, because that matters, too. LeBron has always been about winning, about maximizing every season, every opportunity. And while playing with Bronny is clearly something he wanted, it doesn't change his approach to the game. He's still going to demand execution. He's still going to play at a high level. And that can create a gap between where he is and where Bronny is. This is where it gets dangerous because when that gap becomes too noticeable, it creates tension, not necessarily personal tension, but competitive tension, the kind that comes from trying to balance development with winning. And that's one of the hardest things to do in professional sports. And the moment Bronny James started getting real minutes, real pressure, and real expectations, the cracks started showing, not just in his game, but in the entire dynamic. Because playing with your dad in the NBA isn't normal. It's not like college. It's not like high school. This is the highest level of basketball in the world, and every mistake is magnified. Every decision gets questioned. And when your dad is LeBron James, every single thing you do is automatically tied to him. At first, people thought this would be an advantage, LeBron mentoring Bronny on the court, guiding him, helping him adjust. But what actually started happening felt very different. Reports, reactions, even body language on the court started telling another story. A story where Bronny wasn't just playing basketball. He was playing under a microscope that never turns off. And this is where it gets dangerous because when a young player feels like he can't make mistakes without it becoming a headline, it changes how he plays. You start hesitating. You stop trusting your instincts. You play safe instead of playing free. And that's exactly what fans started noticing. Bronny wasn't just struggling because he's young. He looked like someone trying not to mess up in front of someone he could never disappoint. But it gets worse because LeBron isn't just a dad on the sidelines. He's LeBron James, one of the most dominant, most vocal, most controlling presences the league has ever seen. When he's on the floor, everything runs through him. The offense, the tempo, the decision-making. That works when you're playing with veterans who understand their role. But when it's your son trying to develop his own identity, that's a completely different situation. There were moments where Bronny would defer too much, almost like he was waiting for permission to take over. And that's not how stars are built. That's how role players stay role players. And deep down, that might be the real issue here. Because how do you grow into your own player when the biggest shadow in basketball is literally right next to you? And then you add the media into it. Every game becomes a storyline. Every bad performance turns into, is Bronny ready? Every decent game turns into LeBron helped him. There's no middle ground, No space to just be a rookie figuring things out. And for someone like Bronny, who already came into the league with massive expectations, that pressure stacks up quickly. You could see it in certain games, the hesitation, the lack of rhythm, the moments where he looked like he was overthinking instead of reacting. And that's when people started asking the real question. Was playing with LeBron actually hurting his development instead of helping it? Because here's the reality nobody wants to say out loud. Sometimes the best thing for a young player is distance, space to fail, space to lead, space to make decisions without looking over their shoulder. And Bronny doesn't have that, not when every move is tied to his dad's legacy. And this is where the can't work anymore idea starts making sense. It's not about drama. It's not about disrespect. It's about growth. Because if Bronny wants to become his own player, not just LeBron's son, he needs an environment where he can actually do that. Think about it. Every great player had a phase where they struggled, made bad decisions, and learned from them. But imagine if every mistake you made was instantly compared to one of the greatest players of all time. That's not development. That's pressure overload. And then there's the locker room dynamic. Veterans might respect LeBron, but how do they truly interact with Bronny? Is he just another teammate, or is he LeBron's kid? That subtle difference changes everything. It affects chemistry, communication, even how coaches handle situations. And speaking of coaching, that's another layer. How do you coach Bronny freely when his dad is not only on the team, but also one of the most influential voices in the organization? That creates a situation where everything feels complicated. Decisions aren't just basketball decisions anymore. So when people say Bronny might not be able to keep working with LeBron, it's not coming out of nowhere. It's coming from watching all these small moments add up, the hesitation, the pressure, the lack of freedom, the constant comparison. It all builds into something bigger. And here's the twist that nobody expected. The same situation that was supposed to elevate Bronny might actually be the thing holding him back, not because LeBron is doing anything wrong intentionally, but because the circumstances themselves are overwhelming. And now the bigger question starts to form. What's more important, continuing the story of father and son on the same team or allowing Bronny to actually become the player he's capable of being? Because at some point, something has to give. Either Bronny adapts to being in that shadow permanently, or he steps out of it completely. And stepping out might mean separating from LeBron on the court. That doesn't mean there's conflict. It doesn't mean there's a fallout. It just means reality is setting in. The NBA isn't a storybook. It's a business, and it's a proving ground. And right now, Bronny is in the toughest position any young player could be in. And this is where it all comes together. The exposure isn't about one moment or one quote. It's about a pattern that shows this situation might not be sustainable long term. Because if Bronny wants to be taken seriously as an NBA player, he has to build something that's his, not something that feels like an extension of LeBron's legacy.